Now, if I were a professor, I'd teach a course called Socialism 101, where every student must spend every moment on Venezuela, their eyes glued to the grim results of policies endorsed by the Bernie Sanders of the world. The class, actually, it's happening right now. But is anyone watching? Not if Game of Thrones is on or if President Trump tweets. Those take priority. It's too bad. For the past decade, we've watched an oil-rich country descend into chaos where toilet paper is worth more than actual currency and their currency not worth a crap. It's Socialism 101, a government that controls production and distribution, creates scarcity, followed by sham elections, arrests, dictatorship, corpses in the street. But it never starts out that way. It begins with a left-wing populist and his fan base, self-absorbed elites portraying a holy hell as a heaven in waiting. So where are they now, these Venezuelan fanboys? Sean Penn, Jeremy Corbyn, Oliver Stone, Michael Moore, he's doing a play down the road, Danny Glover, or the writers at Salon who once labeled Venezuela a miracle? Where are they hiding? Why aren't they saying anything? I guess when you see the starving kids, the dying babies, infant mortality up 30%, maternal death up 66%, it's hard to show your face. As apologists, they played a role in it. The technical term, useful idiot. As people die in this celebrity's utopia of the month, the stars inevitably move on, off to find another radical to romance. Funny how this never happens in free markets. Maybe if we killed more people, the stars would love us. You know, Kimberly, the amazing gift of socialism is that it can take the richest thing and destroy it and porify it. I mean, Venezuela, I believe, was the fourth richest, richest country, and now look at it.
Well, this is the problem, and you see that it kind of eats itself from the inside out into total, utter collapse, and you really now see the fruition of these policies result in a complete dictatorship in Venezuela. Maduro was able to accomplish that. When you think about the incredible oil reserves and economic advantages that this country has, yet so many people are suffering and persecuted, wrongly imprisoned, starving, without basic even supplies of milk for children or basic necessities to get through the day, toilet paper and whatnot. It's shocking when you see, and it's such a perfect textbook case example of these failed policies and what they can do to a once productive and thriving country, yet you see people hunger and thirst and celebrate this kind of socialism, yet it always leads to the same conclusion.
Yeah, Juan, why do people on your side, the people that I mentioned, always romance radicalism when they know that there's every example it ends poorly?
Well, I don't know that in every example it ends poorly. I think in most, I don't think there's any question. I read today that the average Venezuelan had lost 14 pounds since Maduro took office. I was like, wow,
well,
that's pretty sad because there's no food. But here's the thing that here's where I think I have a little different view than yours, which is you go back to Venezuela and what fed Hugo Chavez, who really is the forerunner for Nicolas Maduro, now the president, is that there was such tremendous poverty surrounding places like Caracas, which were thriving and based on oil money. And the whole idea, what captured the attention of the left in Hollywood was, oh, here is this little guy struggling against this big American corporation.
Like Castro.
And they're trying to impose their will on this Latin country. And all of a sudden, you get people doing things. And Chavez initially helped to reduce the illiteracy rate, improve the employment rate in Venezuela. That was when it was working. But then you see big government start to, evolve, and the corruption and the excess and the thievery, outright thievery, especially at state-owned enterprises, when the state took over a lot of these oil-based enterprises. So that's where it went wrong. I mean, I'm a pure capitalist. I live here in the U.S. I'm a happy camper.
Tell me about it.
But I'm going to tell you something. I understand, and I think, and this is where I was going to say, what I wanted to say to you was, there's a loop here. I think a lot of the people who were angry over wealth inequality are also, if you look at it, a lot of people in the Trump base who say, you know what, I don't like Wall Street too big to fail. I don't like those elites on the coast. I'm angry and I want someone to represent me. There's a lot of Chavez in that sentiment.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think that the people that are pro-Trump are also pro-business, pro-Second Amendment. I don't think you're going to see that happen. Chris, Chavez, Castro, Ortega. What the world excuses this behavior because they romance the idea of radicalism. That's how I see it. Agree with me.
I love it.
I will try to care what Sean Penn thinks.
Yeah.
I will labor in the yoke.
Deep.
I will dig deep to try to care what Sean Penn thinks. Even though his performance in All the King's Men was execrable, and that for that he should be forced to live in Caracas.
Correct.
There's a cautionary tale here. Beyond just the one that you describe about what happens as socialism devolves and nationalism supplants good thinking, it is this. They were poorly governed originally because they were rich. They were poorly governed in the same way that the Saudis are poorly governed, and other petro nations where they don't have to tax their citizens. They don't need the consent of the governed. They don't have to tax people. In the United States, we hate paying taxes, but that makes us pay attention to what the government's doing to us. If you say, don't worry, you don't have to pay taxes, we're taking care of it, things drift off into bad places quickly.
Very good point.
Dana, let's say you got a 15-year-old sitting there, and you want to explain to that 15-year-old how come free markets are immune to this kind of chaos? Why does this chaos only happen in these governments? But for some reason, we're like well-oiled machines, even though we have our flaws.
Right.
We never, the flaws somehow correct themselves.
It's very interesting. In South America in particular, it gets very little attention. You know, you can pick up the newspaper, unless there's a war, which we could be heading there in terms of a civil war. I had lunch with a teacher today who teaches high school students, and she said that last year, all of her students
Did you buy her lunch?
in Maryland. I did buy lunch.
Very good.
She said that they were all for Bernie Sanders.
Yes.
Like they were all in, they loved him, and that she kept saying, but you realize that what that leads to is something like in Venezuela. What President Trump did this week in terms of the sanctions is actually very strong. Maduro is now one of 4 people in the world that are personally sanctioned. You can sanction countries or companies. So it's Kim Jong-un, Robert Mugabe, Bashar Assad, and now Maduro.
That's quite a club.
And it is.
Wow.
But I think that National Review called it the foursome from hell.
Yeah.
And the question, I think, that why would you lead with this? One is to teach the lesson of socialism, but also the United States really should care about what's happening there, because that is just south of our border. If you care about human rights, one, you should care. 2, you think we have an illegal immigration problem? Wait till there's a problem in South America, and then you'll see the attempts to overrun a border. Maybe that's why you have a wall. The drug trade, it will allow us to proliferate. You also have human trafficking, and not to scare people, but this is true, terrorists try to seek out jihadis to train in places that are unstable, like Venezuela. And Marco Rubio says that is actually actively happening there right now.
Oh, I can believe it. I mean, that's frightening. Let's go to Mike Pence. He might have something to say about this.
In recent days, we've seen the completion of Venezuela's collapse into dictatorship. Not only did the regime hold a sham National Assembly election, but on Monday night, the regime seized 2 prominent members of the opposition, Leopoldo Lopez and Antonio Ledesma, who are being held illegally as we speak.
You know, Kimberly, this wouldn't be a real 5 segment if we didn't put some of this blame on President Obama.
I was waiting for that.
No, the fact is, I mean, he did nothing. I mean, this has been going on for a while. What did he do?
Well, this is
probably played golf.
Yes,
with his rich elite.
Bit of a exactly. Shook hands and essentially enabled them by allowing this to proliferate until the eventual demise as well of Venezuela. And when you see socialism like this, it really discourages kind of, individual contribution to try to create. Yeah, and you just say, okay, well, you know what? I'm just going to sit here and just enjoy my apathy. I'm just going to sit here and let the government provide for me, because there is no built-in incentive for this society and for the structure to sort of put itself forward and save itself, and also to encourage its, future survival. That's why you see it kind of collapse in, and you see the dictatorships, you see people wrongly imprisoned, and just people being shot on the street, people being killed for $5, or even just to buy basic necessities.
Well, what's interesting is now you have 40 countries, Greg, that are not recognizing this new assembly, because the whole election was corrupt. And even a company that was formed in Venezuela, which monitored and actually provided the computers for the election, said millions of votes just fraudulent, just out of control. But you have now an international coalition saying, we don't like what's going on in Venezuela. The question is, beyond saying certain Venezuelan potentates can't travel, what do? Because if you go after the oil, guess what? Then our $2.31 a gallon prices may go up. And this is also at stake in terms of the Russia thing. We're going to talk about that later a little bit. But again, that's an important leverage point, oil. And the question is, does Donald Trump, the president, and Vice President Pence, who we just saw, decide, you know what, we're willing to pay this price to fight against people that we think are corrupt?
I think that's why the natural gas industry, what we're doing in America is very important right now, and the fracking and trying to become less, dependent on unstable countries for their oil.
You know how sad it is here, though. I have, friends and people that go to Venezuela and have lived there. They say that, I don't want you to be upset, Dana, but people are they're eating their own pets. They have nothing to eat. And that's how dire the situation is. Maybe people here will care about that.
Right.
I mean, maybe they'll be upset
about the pets.
Pets.
I'm just hoping the pets are chickens, because that's okay.
I don't think that's
I don't think so either. But though, if I were talking to, this is the perfect way to teach somebody about economics. The difference between free markets and socialism is decentralized economies. Like in a decentralized economy, if something fails, there's something else that succeeds. But if with a centralized economy run by a government, if that fails, it's over.
You better hope you have a pet chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have a pet chicken.
I believe you.
I
believe you.
Leave it there.
I didn't mean it that way.
Only the unicorns are safe with you.
Not even true.